Good evening once again. Good evening once again, St. Luke members and other people who are uh, part of our weekly Sunday school and announcements. I pray that God has blessed you and has favored you this week. This week we have witnessed wildfires. We have witnessed all types of calamity across the country. However, the good news is, and are we yet alive? And are we yet still being blessed uh, by by God? And we are still the beneficiaries of God's favor. I want to share a few things with you this evening there before we get ready for in the morning, Sunday morning worship service there. Of course, as you know, these are our constant and consistent manners of giving here at the St. Luke Church. You're welcome to mail to 2110 Martin Luther King Drive. You're welcome to mail to our recording steward there, 3019 Skelly. The address is on the screen there. Of course, you're willing. We would really appreciate if you would send your offering via Givelify, our Givelify app there as well. Or you can stop by the church on Sundays from 9 until noon and at other times that are designated, as well as you may be able to leave your offering in our Dropbox and just give me a call or give our recording steward a call and let us know that you've done that, and we can get by and pick it up and put it where it needs to be. Praise the name of the Lord. Tomorrow morning, the joint Sunday school lesson at 9:15. Make a note that we will be meeting at 9:15 as opposed to 9:30. You may join the Zoom meeting at this number and the meeting ID number here as well. Tomorrow morning, of course, our morning worship services and our weekly Zoom meeting at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. on Thursday. The Facebook page, St. Luke Christian Methodist Church, or if you would want to watch us on YouTube, it is the St. Luke CME Shreveport, St. Luke CME Shreveport. Thank those of you who have been watching on either forum. We appreciate it. And thank you, the core group of members who are continuing to stay connected with what it is that we have been doing in this time of pandemic here. Praise the name of the Lord. I'm again asking that we remain prayerful as our children have gone back to school, whether they are on a hybrid schedule, whether they are going to school virtually. Some of our students go to school in Bossier Parish. They have now instituted that middle school children will be going back to the traditional 5-day a week school attendance. And it is just a matter of time before they do the same thing for high school in Bossier parishes and in other parishes around the district and around the area. But please know, Caddo students, the schedule is still the same. However, what I'm imploring of you parents, whatever method that you have chosen of educating your children during this time period, I'm asking that you would be vigilant and that you are working hard and that your children are studying, because we do not want them to get behind, and continue to email, continue to make contact with your child's teacher. In fact, I recommend that you get on their nerves. I know that I am in constant contact. I hear from more parents now than I did when I had 30 children in the classroom. So please take advantage of whatever platform, whatever method of education you've chosen for your child. I want you to be diligent, and I want you to be vigilant in making sure that your child is learning and growing. Oh, praise his name. Oh, so September, birthdays for this month. Bailey Gladney there, David Smith, Mr. Robert Johnson, Linda Goodrich, Dr. Larry Joe Pennell, I believe, is having a birthday coming up either today or tomorrow at the time that I'm filming this. Jimmy Archie, our bass guitar player, I believe he had a birthday earlier this week. I may have to give Jimmy something extra in his check. I don't know. Mr. Emmett Black, Coach Larry Anderson, and of course, Ms. Doris Robertson, who wanted to make sure that I did that, and she shared that with me in no uncertain terms. Thank you, Ms. Robertson, for making sure that we are mindful of your birthday as well. Let's go ahead and get into the lesson. Now, I know that the Sunday school lesson has a different title in the Sunday school books. In the Sunday school books, it has a different title. However, the title that we're going to use for this time, and because of the power of this lesson, amen, I'm going to call it You're Going from the Pit to the Palace. You're going from the pit to the palace. Because last week we started out with Joseph. We started out with Joseph's story of how his brothers mistreated him, how his brothers were envious him because of his father's love for him. His brothers ended up hating him, and they threw him into a pit. Oh, but praise the name of the Lord, that is not the end, or was not the end of Joseph. Let's see what happens to Joseph. Joseph is an archetype, a prototype of Jesus. Let's look at some of the similarities here. He is the object of his father's special love. He had promises of divine exaltation. Yes, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. He was sold for pieces of silver. You remember that. Judas does that as the similarity with his brothers. He was stripped of his robe. In fact, they cast lots at the cross. They gambled for his robe. He was delivered up to the Gentiles, falsely accused, faithful amid temptation. You remember the 40 days and 40 nights where he was taken up to prison, to this high mountain, and the devil tempted him on several occasions there. Joseph was faithful amid temptation from Potiphar's wife, and then ended up being thrown into prison. And when you go back and read Genesis 39, you will see that scripture says, and she taunted him daily, every single day, but he was able to withstand that temptation. He stood before the rulers. He is exalted, raised up even after and through humiliation. Jesus was humiliated, as was Joseph, and still he sits and reigns with his Father. He embraces God's purpose, even though it brings him intense physical harm. Joseph in prison, Joseph in a pit, Joseph in a bad place, Jesus on a cross. These are similarities between the two of them. So let's go ahead and get into our lesson here. Now, Joseph, mind you, the son here, his father, his brothers have lied and told his father, Jacob, that he has been murdered by wild animals that have devoured him. They present his coat to him with goat's blood on it as a symbol of what has happened, but it's a lie. But remember now, in our last lesson, it was the dreams of Joseph that caused his brothers to hate him even more than they did before. Remember, they hated him because they were envious of the fact that his father loved him more. And then they hated him because in his dreams, he interpreted them to mean that they would one day bow down unto him. So listen to what Pharaoh says. Now notice here, Joseph is in prison. Joseph is in prison. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, tells him about the dreams. The dreams, Pharaoh, are one. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads are 7 years. The dreams are the same. And the 7 thin and ugly cows which came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty heads blighted by the east wind are 7 years of famine. Now, Pharaoh in Egypt, the Egyptians were polytheistic. In other words, they believed in Osiris, Ra, who was the sun god, and they had the various god for every season and for every aspect of their lives. That's why later on in the book of Exodus, as Moses, God sends the plagues. The plagues are an affront to every one of Egypt's gods, in a way of taunting them. But now here is Joseph, who had been in prison, almost reminiscent of Daniel, who is now given the task of interpreting the king's dreams. Look at now, remember now, started in the pit, goes to Potiphar's house. Now he has an audience with the king. And this is what the king thing, the king who I've spoken to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. Indeed, there will be 7 years of great plenty will come throughout all the land of Egypt. But after them, there'll be 7 years of famine will arise, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine will deplete the land. In other words, he's saying, he said, there will be surplus. There will be a time of great economic profit. There will be a time of great economic growth. And out of that, but then a famine will come. In fact, the famine will come in so bad that we'll forget about the good times. Life will do that to you sometimes. Amen. So the plenty will not be known in the land because of the famine following, for it will be very severe. And the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice, because the things is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Verse 33, now therefore let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Here again now, here is Pharaoh. Pharaoh recognizes something here after having had his dream interpreted. The pharaohs were, any Egyptologist or student of history will tell you, were almost a part of, almost similar to the gods, if you would. In Greek and Roman, they were the Titans or the Olympiads. And here the pharaoh, who was revered as a god, recognized that he says this, the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man. Why does Pharaoh need a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt when he himself is a god? Now notice this right here. I want you to look at something. When his brothers heard of his dream, they hated him. When Pharaoh received his dream, Pharaoh treated him wisely. Yes. You see, your gift to some may be a source of disdain, but your gift to others may be a source of great pride and great treasure. So the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his servant. Listen what it says, verse 37. And Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God? In other words, by the time we get to verse 37, the question is, well, we've got to find somebody to put. He brings in his best men. He brings in Egyptians. He brings in men from across his kingdom. And look at what it says. And Pharaoh said to his servants, we got to find a man of whom the Spirit of God is in. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, inasmuch as God has shown you all of this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. Notice now, he's come from the pit. He is now in the palace because he has met the favor. Remember Daniel? Daniel had been forced marched from Babylon to Babylon, from his homeland, and finds favor with the king. Here is Joseph, this continuing narrative of how you can find favor even in the midst of those who could perhaps even be your enemies. Look at what Pharaoh says. Pharaoh says similar to what the king Nebuchadnezzar said to Daniel. Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning, as smart as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. I'm making you my number 2 man. Everybody has to listen to you. Look at where Joseph comes from. Joseph comes from tending his father's flock with jealous and envious brothers, family rivalries and sibling rivalry, and now a stranger whose land he was sold into tells him, you will be the number 2 man in my kingdom. Potiphar, who had him thrown in prison, he goes to prison, interprets dreams. He is released from prison, and now look at where he is. God has not given up for those who feel as though you're in a prison of your life, or you've reached a low place in your life and in your circumstances, because God still has a way of raising his children up. Yes, only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And then verse 50, Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bore to him. He called his name, Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my labor and all of my father's house. Oh my God. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Look at what he says. God will make you forget your problems in your past. And at the same time, God will cause you to be fruitful even in a place and a position where you were supposed to have failed. Oh my God, I like this. I need to preach this at some point where I can really holler. Listen, for God has made me forget my labor. God has made me forget my jealousy. God has made me forget the envy and the hurt that I suffered, and allowed me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. I have a question. How many of us has God raised to a point to where we can forget those who hurt us, those who mistreat us, those who have done us harm and wrong intentionally, and still be fruitful in the land in the time of affliction? We can't live in the past, but we can certainly make the very best of our futures as well. So here's some lessons I want us to learn. From Joseph, character still counts. Number 2, do what is pleasing to God regardless of the consequences. Number 3, relying on God's guidance will help you prepare for your future. Number 4, forgiveness should always be extended over resentment. Number 5, God is sovereign over the darkest moments in our lives, from that pit to that palace. And God is still to be honored in good and in bad times. Even in the good times, he still honors God by saying, I want to forget my problems, and then I'm going to take my second child and give him to God, and that I'm always reminded that I've been able to be fruitful in the midst of my afflictions. Oh, praise the name of the Lord. Let's take this lesson today. Hopefully you will have been blessed by it. And on tomorrow, I want to leave this word. I don't know who needs this, but understand, I think this is a word that Joseph would share. When God has selected you, it doesn't matter who else has rejected or neglected you, because God's favor outweighs all opposition. You are a winner. Yes, that's a good word right there for somebody. I don't know who needed it, but that's a good word. That is a good word for somebody. So tomorrow I will be preaching from Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 20. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about Yes, he is able. Now unto him that is able to do. And I'm going to stop right there. Read it. Read Ephesians 3:20. He is able to do. Oh, praise his name there. I'm going to preach this on tomorrow morning at 10:30. YouTube Live, Facebook Live. Praise the name of the Lord. We will have a word on tomorrow. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. And I look forward to you all texting in, signing in tomorrow, and let us know that you're watching us either on Facebook or on YouTube Live. God bless you, and thank you is my prayer.